some of the futurists are predicting that, right? Like you said, one of your other comments earlier was, is it going to only get worse? Yes, we already know that. I think it's Maurice Conti. I love him as a futurist. If anybody wants to look him up, he's out there. But he said 7 years ago, and he's been right, that the world will change. And this was 7 years ago, more in the next 20 years than it did in the previous 2000. His definition of that is just the pace of change. So pace of change defined as skill sets, back to that first question you asked me and what I'm talking about with psychological safety and what people are feeling, knowledge, skills, abilities, right? Where it comes down to is the most important skill, and it's been an important skill forever, is critical thinking, right? Is agility, but because it's critical thinking at pace now. It's critical thinking at pace. Hi. Good.
Well, welcome to season 5, where I bring brilliant folks to talk about how to unblock growth. On this episode, you'll say hello to Tara, Chief People Officer of InfoTech. Now, I know most organizations are now discussing how to benefit from AI. But if they start with technology first, and Tara, you and I will talk about this, and not ignore the process, or more importantly, the people, most important, the people, you will fail. So in this episode, our focus is how to unblock growth by helping your people embrace AI. Tara, we have so much to talk about.
Looking forward to it, Adam.
Almost feel like you'll be helping me work through some very timely things happening in my world. It's kind of like I'm asking you questions for my benefit, for the audience, for the team, for the partners, for so many that are struggling with the questions. So let's begin with something that happened in our discussion. I said it's coming. You interrupted me and you said,
it's here.
What did you mean?
Oh, I'll take us back, right? So we're going to center on people and answering these questions and how we help people get there. But so you're a person. So every person listening, you're experiencing this too. First of all, when we talk about generative AI, which is what everyone's talking about right now, this isn't the Terminator. This isn't now, could it get there one day? This isn't the podcast to talk about that. What we're talking about right now is technology tools that think at a pace and help us think at a pace that we've never seen before. But when I say it's here, AI's been around since 1960, right? It started with those chatbots that came in 1960 and people started using that is AI. That is artificial intelligence. That is something else thinking for us, making decisions based on an algorithm, making decisions based on inputs into a computer it can pull out. What's here, what's very different, is now the reality of its response mimics human behavior to a point where it causes pause. It causes a break in psychological safety, right? It causes people to go, wait, I don't know if I could have answered that way. I don't know if I could have answered that quickly if I could answer that way. It's got a tone of voice to it. It can change based on audience. It can shift. It can do things that we said, or that many said maybe quite a few years ago. Many said will be able to do this, but many also said it will never replace people in that way. And now it mimics people in a way that feels more real, but it's here.
Break psychological safety. That's super powerful. I haven't heard it put in those contexts, but it gave me goosebumps. Why is that? What is the trigger? And also, can we reflect on different personas? Does everyone will go through the same journey? So I know I'm asking one more question, and there's a lot to unpack, but
Sure,
I'm almost curious, what happened with you? When did that happen for you, and what did it mean? So if we could just start there, would be amazing, because I think almost everyone listening either has experiencing it in this specific moment, or leading others through this.
Yeah. So the term you're going to see that's out there that I've seen probably for about 6 months now in print is fear of being obsolete, right? So when I say breaking psychological safety, the most common feeling people are having, people being general, and then I'll get into personas and I'll get into me to answer your question, are, does this threaten me in some way? Does it compete with me? It's all of a sudden this nameless, faceless algorithm, right, that might be better than me at something, that might take away what makes me unique, some skill set I have, something that I can offer to this world. And when we're talking about the world of work, honestly, and I'm not taking away from that, but it's something I can be paid for, something that has value, something that I can use to support myself and my family. And it's something that I've said, if I was to ask, and we've been trained our whole life, so a little bit more about me. My background, I'm a career counselor, right? I'm a career counselor. I'm a leadership development coach. I've focused most of my career in organizational development, helping organizations set strategy. But most importantly, in doing that is setting strategy and bringing the people with you and getting them bought into that strategy that are going to make that work. Businesses don't work without people, right? And ultimately, if we're stepping back and we're going, okay, the world of work right now, when you were taught young, so think your first time you put, and regardless of profession, the first time you had to put something on paper, whether that's a formal resume or something else, the first time someone talked to you, maybe that's your mentor, maybe that's a parent that said, how do you define yourself? What makes you unique? When you talk and someone listens, why do they remember you? What do you put into writing to say, these are the things that define me? Well, now I'll get into another HR term we use all the time, right? That typically falls into KSAs, knowledge, skills, abilities, a list of things that make me unique. When we have AI coming into our workforce right now and mimicking things that seem to be things we would call as behaviors or outputs that would prove a knowledge, a skill, or an ability, it starts going, okay, well, why do they need me? What do I do different? What makes me special? So my own journey in this, right? To your point, I'm an HR leader. I'm a organizational leader. I focus on organizational development, on corporate communications, on culture work. Most of what I do, though, how I do that comes down to communication, comes down to how I tailor communication to an audience, to the person I'm talking to, the personas I'm speaking to, the audience I'm speaking to, so they know I hear them. So I'm listening, right? And there's an empathy in that. There's an emotional intelligence in that, that up until this year, even I would have said, no AI, no robot is going to be able to do that. Nobody else is going to be able to read that person on the other side on real time and understand what lean in means. Make them believe vulnerably that it matters, that I'm here, that I believe, that I can give you an answer. Well, I test you right now to check some of the AI that's in the environment and what they're building. There's some that will respond to you with vulnerability, that will pull together what it knows from your profile and your background and do so in real time in a way that I thought, for me, could never touch what I do. Now, do I still have a healthy confidence in the amount of emotional intelligence, what it brings, that in-person interaction, those types of things that can't be replaced? Potentially. But even in my world, it can replace some of the things that people used to come to me. And if I make that tactical, right, if I translate that KSA into a tactical responsibility for me, throughout my career, I've been asked by my executive partners to help them write talking points, right? To help them write key pieces based on my knowledge of our population, my knowledge of our organization, what it's going through, what words work, what words don't. Give them some of the right words so that they can make it their own and they can lean in. They can now type into an AI chatbot or some other type of thing, ChatGPT being the most common. I need a set of talking points that leans in, that's vulnerable, in an organization going through this change, that has this impact, this type of demographics. If you put the right prompt in, can you give me a starting place where Tara could have gotten them something phenomenal in maybe a couple hours? ChatGPT can get them something pretty phenomenal that they're still going to have to make their own in maybe 30 seconds. And that, for me, right, as you're saying, real time for me went, okay, that's my first ping for me of like, oh, it's coming at me. And then if we put ourselves in personas, right, does this affect everyone? It does, Adam. It absolutely does. It does in any different ways and in different ways. Like, obviously we can talk about robots and manufacturing and all of the operations and the efficiencies and the effectiveness that we've been seeing for years and people feeling way before the professions started being worried about it. And so that's where I'm going to first put a separate persona. we're not the first to feel this fear of being obsolete, this attack on psychological safety from something. It's happened to those that made their living in manufacturing for years. They see technology come in and automate and make things more efficient and do away with things that were manual processes that humans used to do with their hands. But the difference in AI is it's doing away that things that people used to do with their brains, things that were a higher profession that I went to college to get a degree in. So does it affect everybody? Yes. But who it's affecting right now that's causing the pause, that's causing is the people that went into marketing. I know a lot of your audience into communications, the people that are skilled writers that have that gift that nobody could really touch before. But all of a sudden AI kind of is because of some of how they can move. Now, I'm not saying it's still the same beauty. They're not the same poetry, but they can start some poem. You can put in some parameters and get a pretty good start, right?
That's great framing. Tara, I'm going to just share with you because I've been losing quite some sleep over this, like no doubt. I'm going to share with you how I've been thinking about it. Please help me examine it, and then we'll kind of extrapolate it.
Yeah, I'd love
I've
that,
been
but I'm going to push back on you too. Also, the first time we talked, you had to examine it in real time because you were about to talk to your entire organization. I don't know if you're telling me that story now, but I would like to hear you weave a little of that in.
so I'll just kind of go to how it went,
Okay,
and then I'll unpack. But
great.
how it went, thank you for asking or putting me on the spot because now I'm like, wait a second, I actually went too far with my team. I didn't meet them where they are.
Mm,
And it got me to think about my journey. And here's what I think the journey is for many, because I'm not an innovator in technology. I'm not a technologist. So I think there's a past, present, future. And when I think about a past to present, I looked up the stages of grief.
mm,
Denial. Yes, that was me a year ago. It's not happening. Then I was pissed. Like, like legitimately pissed.
yeah.
Then the bargaining begins. Well, it's only going to do this much. Then I feel like I was in depression for a bit, helpless. So the transition, the bridge from past to present to me was the 5 stages leading to acceptance,
Hmm.
and then honestly thinking about what the future could hold. And when I shared with the team last week, I forgot what it took for me.
Yeah.
So please, if you could help me frame, reframe, think about, I really want to focus on this idea of as leaders, we must have superb empathy for the people to meet them where they are.
Okay. Yeah. First, though, I'm going to challenge one of your self beliefs, right? One of the comments you just made to me, which I'm going to say absolutely is not the case, is you're not an innovator, you're not a technologist. First of all, you put those two things as synonymous, but they aren't. Being an innovator and being a technologist are not the same thing. Um,
Fair.
but I would argue that everyone can be an innovator. You're certainly an innovator. You have a podcast. You're looking at things in a unique ways. You bring that back to your organization. You are an innovator. And I would argue you can be a technologist in today's day and age. That definition is that you embrace technology to accomplish a task. You're running a
Love it.
podcast, Adam. you're a technologist. You got it. You're not a software engineer,
Uh,
potentially. Maybe you're not doing the code. And trust me, those people are also got a little fear of obsolete and becoming, but that's a little different.
I'll just, first, huge thank you.
Hmm.
To me, I'm so behind that I felt like in this space I'm not an innovator, but I now welcome this reframing and will fully, with the theme of our podcast, embrace it.
And then I will say, and I didn't do it on purpose to set you up, but when you're asking me the question of how do I do this? How do I meet people where they are? Because you just said you didn't feel you did like that, like I just did with you, right? So first you have to help them reframe where they're seeing their self-beliefs, their worries, where they are. You can scale that though. That doesn't mean you have to have, if one of your people out there are like, that's easy for you to say, Tara, you're talking about a 600 person organization that you're mostly working with. I'm over here at 50,000. I can't meet 50,000 people where they are. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. And you do that through creating champions. We know how to do that. We do that through finding pockets of people and then allowing for those conversations to happen in the most appropriate, organic way for the people that know them best. But we can give them pieces of it. I will also underscore what you just said. Yes, what we're attempting to do though here, like the best advice I can give any of your listeners right now is understanding that it is already here. This isn't a debate. It's not fighting it. It's not trying to have an argument with the faceless man that is now competing for your job, and that if you show the world that you're better at it, maybe we'll ignore it and we'll turn off all the widgets that are moving it in the right direction. Absolutely not going to happen. That is a fruitless battle. But I'm not trying to scare them in that. We're moving them towards acceptance, as you had to move through yourself, potentially faster. How do I tell you how I do that? For everyone, every persona is a little different. Every organization is a little different. But it starts with leaning in, meeting them where they are, and pulling them towards you. The best way I found to pull them towards you, though, is to show them what it actually is, and to show them how it actually makes their life easier. And there are so many examples of how to do that. So another persona you asked me about that I will just take a minute, since you said you're not a technologist. I work for a software company, right? The majority of my population is software engineers. Talk about individuals that aren't scared of AI. For the most part, right? Those are the ones that have been raising their hand, asking us why we're not doing this new cool thing. They want us to play with technology for the sake of playing with technology. They want to be cutting edge, not necessarily to solve the business issue, but because they heard there's this new cool thing that we could do better if we used it. Not always, and I have some really great business-focused software engineers too, but the software engineer personality is typically, when you hear their story, they were a young child, they took apart their dad's computer for the first time, they put it back together, it was cool, they wanted to see if they could make it better, they constantly want to make things better. So having them embrace AI from that level to accept it's here isn't a problem. But they're also having their psychological safety shattered. Why? Because the first team, they asked for it and they used the tool and they realized that they can put into it a prompt that says, I want it to do this for this design. And then they checked the code and they realized that was pretty darn good. And it happened in 30 seconds, what would have taken them maybe a matter of days to do that same thing. Do they still have to check it? Yes, but we have to test any code. What's even more amazing for them is they're realizing, and this is just a real-time example of that persona, a lot of them are realizing in today's day, and this will change, but today's day where I'm seeing a lot of them come on board very quickly is they were trained in specialty knowledge. They're phenomenal developers. They're engineers, right? They have a skill that some people look at it and it's a different language, but they would even tell you they each learned a language for coding. And software, legacy products that's now been around for a long time, even though it's short in our world's history, right? Or in our lifetimes, it's been around for a long time, have new type of coding that is introduced. Anybody out there that might be listening to it, there's still in my organization, people that use Python. It's a very antiquated coding piece, right? Versus Ruby, that would be more common or something new coming on. But what AI can do, and they'll tell you, is if you're fluent in that language. So let's say I'm fluent, and we'll make it easy for a communicator. I'm fluent in English. I can turn it into Spanish like that. And you're like, yeah, Tara, there's been translators for that for a long time. Well, now there's a translator for that for everything, Adam. There's a translator like that for everything. It's that can make it in real time, allow you to speak another language. And you can still be great at what you do, but you don't have to learn that other language first to do it. Which, talk about the efficiency in that.
Yeah, I've been playing with AI agents, and oh my, I don't want to even open that door, because we open that door, we'll go there. But Tara, what I'd like to do is go back to the psychological safety break, that first moment in time, whether it's a technologist, a writer, a marketer, someone in data, doesn't matter what field. That moment in time, if they haven't been as tuned in, and they've been part of the denial, anger like me, or they're in the bargaining or depression phase, I've had amazing three folks in strategy, Matt, Daria, Chris, they went through this, and I almost observed the moment where all of them asked the following question. One of them very openly, is my career as I know it, right? As I know it, over? Is it? No, it was like in the moments in the evenings we're chatting. Go, please tell me.
A clear answer. If I got that question right now, and I have gotten similar, I would say absolutely not. But can I also tell you that it has fundamentally changed? It has. It has. So if you are defining that career as how you've always done it and wanting to continue to do it that way, and for some personas, that is what we're fighting against. That is what they're really saying is, are you telling me I have to change how I've always done my job to get different output? And the answer is yes to that. But I am definitely not saying your career is over.
Okay.
And
I
how fundamentally it changes and how quickly you get there does shift a little based on need right now. And we are at that time where we are actually very lucky. And this is what I want people to hear. Don't put your head in a hole. Don't wish it's going to go away. Don't pick a whole new career path because what you're reading is that your career path is one of the ones that's the most like communications and marketing that's going to be affected by this. Don't do that. That's not the right thing. Embrace it where it is. And the way you can help people find that, if you're a leader that you say, that what if you have someone who doesn't want to? How do you help them accept faster? Because it's not as easy as just saying it's not going away, right? To some of those audiences, you show them where it is in tools they already use. There's so much technology already being utilized that helps people do their role. Find the one that they do buy into. And I mean, I'd need like a minute with you, but any person can look in your organization. Is that Slack? Is that Lucid? Is that, what is it? Do you use a whiteboard feature? Do you use all of these technologies, at least the ones that are going to still be around? I will tell you that. If I'm not a predictor, but the other people out there are saying it, and I believe that. The ones that are going to exist are embedding AI within their tools that you already use. Get your people to play with those tools in the tools they're already comfortable with and see the value. Some of them won't even realize it's AI. They'll just all of a sudden see this new feature, which it's a lot of the same technology. Zoom now. I'm a Zoom company. Yeah, I know you are too, Adam. Like Zoom it just popped up one day. I swear it did on the enterprise license. They did send something out, but it's just this new Zoom new AI assistant. It's got that magical sparkle symbol. I don't know what that symbol is supposed to mean. I probably should look it up. There's probably a name, but it's the same magical sparkle symbol in a lot of technology. So that's like the symbol for AI. It's like magic, which I think is funny, right? That right there. And we don't understand it. It's magic. It's not magic. It's mimicking what human beings can do, which is process an enormous amount of information and pull it in real time and make a decision and spit it back out with the right prompt appropriately. And unfortunately, it can do some of that faster. But if you can show them in their tools and let them play with it, you'll notice it's an easier conversation. Why? Because the main thing that AI does, what it really does, is it makes your job easier. It makes you more efficient. Often it can make you more effective if you use it right. And we are lucky right now in every profession because we have the opportunity to decide when and when not to use it. I'm not trying to scare anybody out there because those people that are already scared, but eventually we'll have less opportunity to choose. There'll be the path that uses this is the one that everyone says is the best and get on. But that's not what's happening right now. It's not get on the bus or you missed the bus. It's take the bus for this leg of your travel or this piece of this context to accomplish this task and try it. And then you realize, hey, I could have taken the bus or I could have taken the plane. That's AI. And I would have saved myself a lot more time. And the difference between other things that we've introduced in our world before that have had that same type of wow outcome is it's not that much more expensive to take the other option. So there's not too much barrier to entry. And so back to psychological safety, that's the thing that's different. Our barrier to entry is in our head right now when it comes to AI. I'm not saying every like there are some tools that are kind of expensive right now and cost prohibitive, but nothing like we've seen when other technology was introduced into our markets. I mean, years before people could afford a computer or a PC, before those types of things, like only the elite got to even play with it. That's not the case here. It's offered for free in most things. It's not even an upgrade. Play with it.
I love that. I'm going to go to next difficult question, but just
Right.
a quick reflection. By showing them how it's already used, by showing context, you're so right. I actually saw a lot of impact by having the team open ChatGPT, giving long context questions, very long. I would go for 2-3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Responses came back. They were mind-blowing, but they were also not great in some ways. There were hallucinations,
Mm-hmm.
inconsistencies.
Yeah.
The moment you start to see the limitations is where you go, wait a second, this is not replacing me, this is helping me do better. But
Yeah.
we're on the same
That's
page.
it.
But I want to go to a more difficult question that
Okay.
I've received, and how do you handle the following? If the thing is here already,
Mm-hmm.
doing this,
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? Like what, 5 years? If I'm in my mid-20s, 20 years? Will it eventually get smart enough and good enough to replace me? How do you handle that difficult question?
Um, well, first, you're gonna learn a little bit of my personality, Adam, and I'm gonna say what I would probably say, depending on who I'm talking to and how much I could push, because I am trying to also get a smile out of it, is I would say, not if you start running too, right?
Drop the
Like,
mic.
right? It's not gonna replace you if you start paying attention. But no, if you put your hand in the sand and you sit here and say, then maybe, yeah, maybe, but you've made that choice. Don't make that choice. Be the thing that shows where the next is. AI, what we know, here's a couple things we know, right? We know AI is going to create more jobs than it eliminates. It is going to eliminate some jobs as we knew it, but it's going to create, some people are saying 2 to 10 times more jobs than it eliminates. Jobs that didn't even exist now exist because of AI. So will it take away how you used to do your job? Maybe. Other things we know. We know AI has been, right, again, we know a technology has been around. We know that we're kind of working towards these things together. We know that right now, and this is my favorite analogy to use, it is like the people mover in the airport. And it's my favorite analogy to use because I really want people to think about it. An airport has a very specific purpose. I'm a design thinking fan. The first tenet of design thinking, which I'm hoping your audience probably likes that a little bit too, got some marketers out there. Um, Ultimately, the first is think about, before you try to solve a problem, think about it in the context of the space. An airport has a very specific function. It is actually just a place to go to get on a plane to go someplace else. Sure, we make it entertaining in case you're stuck there. Sure, we have a lot of people focus on the service experience, all of those things. Ultimately, it's a place you need to get through as quick as possible to get from to a plane to get you someplace else. The people mover in the airport right now, which is in all airports, are one of 10 paths you can take, right? I would ask you to look the next time you're in the airport. Most people choose that path if they can. Why? Because they put in less effort and they get to the same place as fast as the person who didn't choose that path. That is what AI is. It'll let you do less effort to get to the same path if you use it correctly. And that's my joke there of people that stand on the people mover. That's not what you're supposed to do. Don't do that. You're supposed to walk on the people mover. Walk with AI, walk by its side, see where it can go. But does that affect our workforce? Yes. And this is a point I want to make, Adam. And I told you from the beginning, I want to focus on how we get our teams there. But I also want the organizations and all listeners to understand, and this is OD, this is my world. We're talking about a new skill set. No, that's not true. We're talking about an enhanced skill set. We're talking about a twist on a skill set that has always been critically important, that becomes more critically important in today's day and age. And it is being driven by AI, amongst other trends. There's a war for productivity in our country. The best organizations that are out there are the ones that are going to be more efficient and more effective. Big numbers, easy for you to see that. Look at the gross product number, right? So gross product number versus actual workforce number. I saw this the other day. I need to check it, and I'm sure one of your listeners will on me. But I haven't tested it to make sure it's actually right. But I saw it in print the other day, and I believe it. In the last 50 years, we're talking about an overall workforce number going up, number of people working by only a few percentages, where the GDP went up by 600%. That is simply less people, more output in the most obvious definition I could ever see. That isn't also just now. That's been coming for 50 years. That's 50 years of that coming. But now we have a tool that becomes, and that's where people need to see it. It's an arrow. It's a tool. It's something you can pull. It's, you can choose to use it to help you be better, to make you more efficient. And organizations are going to embrace it because they're going to see that.
Yeah, I'm just, as you were saying it, I'm thinking about all the revolutions we've had. You're describing the impact from industrial to digital,
Yes.
and you said 600%. I'm just sitting here taking that number in, and then I started to think, well, what would AI do on productivity? Are we talking another 600,
Yep.
6,000?
Some of the futurists are predicting that, right? Like you said, one of your other comments earlier was, is it going to only get worse? Yes, we already know that. I think it's Maurice Conti. I love him as a futurist. If anybody wants to look him up, he's out there. But he said 7 years ago, and he's been right, that the world will change. And this was 7 years ago, more in the next 20 years than it did in the previous 2000. His definition of that is just the pace of change. So pace of change defined as skill sets, back to that first question you asked me and what I'm talking about with psychological safety and what people are feeling, knowledge, skills, abilities, right? Where it comes down to is the most important skill, and it's been an important skill forever, is critical thinking, right? Is agility, but because it's critical thinking at pace now. It's critical thinking at pace. That is what's going to differentiate you in any profession that where your brain is the most important thing, where your brain is your asset, not your hands. Now, there's still a lot of professions that I can talk about, have a whole nother podcast about that, but where your brain is your asset as a human being, and that's what you're applying your knowledge, skills, and abilities into those spaces. That's what's going to differentiate you, is your ability to think at pace. And now we have a tool for those of you that will go, oh, I'm more thoughtful, or I'm a person who can get there and I have the best ideas, but I need a minute. Now you have a toolkit that can help you get there, that can help you get faster. It helps you. And for those of you who are like, I'm already great at that, it only helps you go even faster. And guess what? You're the ones who are fantastic at writing prompts, which now that shifts for what we're looking at when we talk about leaders and individuals, but especially leaders, the leaders of tomorrow, something I'm asked to talk about all the time, not just how they lean in and support their people, but what are the skill sets they need? Because I have gotten that, well, they'll never replace leadership. AI is never going to replace leadership. No, they're not, but it can help leaders be better. And the leaders of tomorrow, and you said you loved that I said this, but it is absolutely the case. They need to stop being the problem solvers, the ultimate escalation. Like, if I can't do it, I go to my boss, they can fix it. They need to be the problem finders. They need to be the people that says, what's the problem I'm truly trying to solve to accomplish this? And then they hand that to their incredible workforce that is 5 generations, AI and robots sitting side by side solving those issues. But you got to think of those people as your coworkers. You got to think of this nameless, faceless man that is your competitor as your coworker and your colleague. And then you see what you can accomplish together. And I'm going to say to your audience, the people that are best at that taught us how to do that, are communicators and marketers. So help the organizations and the world understand that too. You guys did that better than anyone. You're the first ones to talk about collaboration and why it matters and how ideas can multiply when pulled in together. That's what we're doing. That's what we're talking about.
So many layers of what you're saying that's resonating with me. I'm just kind of taking it in and just taking a minute. But I do think it's important to talk about the leader's role in this, because you already began to talk about it, and I already learned last week what works, maybe what doesn't work. How do we think about leaders in helping their teams, right? Because we need to, when we think about an organization, 70% of the employee experience is about the direct manager.
100%.
Right? What does Gallup say? It's all about the manager. Right?
Yeah, it's all about the direct. Yeah.
So what is the bar that we set for managers in order for them to meet people where they are? Do we say, hey, they themselves should lead the way, pioneer? They should create the safe space to discuss this. They should walk us through how to approach this from a manager lens of what should be the expectation to empower them, to give them the tools to do this.
I'll try to walk you through, and I'll maybe also attempt to set that example in that, right? So so to answer your question succinctly, should they be your champions? Yes. In your best case scenario, in any kind of change, and this is change transformation, where something unique is affecting the entire world, that we need to have our workforces embrace. And those companies, organizations, and people that embrace it the best are going to be the most successful. That is the case, right? And that either when your listeners are hearing that is now I've convinced them and they're feeling a little better at that, or they're excited and they're giving me a high five and an amen, or they're going, oh, I still don't like it. I want to turn this off. I don't think that's the right case, right? But wherever you are, you know that your best option in change, we've known that for a long time, is to create internal champions. And if you can cultivate cultures and cultivate strategies and cultivate people and invest in anyone within an organization, yes, you should try to invest in those people that you've already bestowed the title of leader or people manager, because we know those people are the ones the rest of your people are looking to. So yes, Adam, those should be the people we try to get there. But people are not widgets. It's not A and B. It's not, well, this is your job now. You as a leader need to be a champion automatically, embrace all change. And if you're not an optimistic person that's going to embrace AI, you shouldn't be a leader anymore. That is not what Tara's saying. It's probably meaning you as an organizational leader need to know there's other reasons that make people great leaders that aren't strong in those areas. And you might need to help them be stronger in those areas, because that will help other people embrace it. You might need to pull a champion that isn't the leader, because people follow them because they are leading from their seat, not because they don't have the title, and create champions in other spaces because that makes sense, because the leader you do have in seat makes sense in the leadership seat for a different reason. So it's not as simple or black and white, but ultimately getting back at the more important piece of how do we help those leaders lean in for their people. First, they have to experience it themselves, which you are patterning perfectly, right? You have to react on, how do I feel? What resonates with me? Where does that go? What do I know about the person in front of me? What resonates with them? What could they change? Where are they going to see it? What angle, honestly, is going to speak to them? What point? Are they a person that's like, you can talk all day, but I need to feel it, see it, do it? Then get that tool in your organization that they already use, and turn on the AI if it's not already turned on, and let them start playing with it. And then 2 months in, go, that's AI, right? The thing you're so excited that made that so better. That's what I'm talking about. Can you do some research on what else we can do to make our life easier here, and see it on the other side, right? And again, it's not always, it depends on the profession and where we pull it in, but there's different ways to lean in and meet those people where they
I was going to talk more about the leaders, but I can't anymore because you used the word in what you were saying, and since you used it, now it's in my head. We got to go there just for a minute. We talked about this being change, right?
are.
Embracing change. Then you used the word transformation.
Yeah.
And then, to me, I've been recently wondering, because I've been reading on the digital transformation, the before and the after. And why is it called the transformation? Because those two worlds are they're legitimately two different worlds. Yes, there's a lot in common, but
Yeah.
the dynamics have shifted. Do
Yeah.
you think this should be looked at as transformative? Should this be looked at as transformative by function, by team? How would you think about characterizing that level of change?
This is transformative holistically. It is
Hmm.
transformative holistically, but it doesn't need to, it should be acknowledged, but it doesn't need to be intentionally created at the top first. It can be created at the team or the individual level. You can have a champion. You can have a champion team. You can have a champion profession. You can have a department that goes first. And it might not be the ones you expected. It could be your finance department who found out that the AI just saved them hours in balancing the books, and they just had to check the work of it instead of doing it themselves. Like when I'm talking about, it could be transformative that way, and then the whispers come out, and then the space, and it's positive. It's positive momentum. But to answer your bigger questions, is this a transformative change affecting our workforce and driving the skills of tomorrow? 100% it is, Adam. It's the number one thing doing it. It's driving what are the skills, knowledges, and abilities across professions that used your head first, right? That are thinking professions that we go and get a degree for the most part, or that we work our whole life and build knowledge to be able to be better at. It's transforming those professions very holistically. just like other technology has transformed manufacturing and operations before us.
I don't know for listeners, but certainly for me, like I felt like I was a little anxious even today as I was thinking about the week, thinking about ahead, all related to these questions of AI and embracing AI, mostly by the team. I actually feel better talking
I
to
hope
you.
so. And that's where it comes down to the simple answer that we've made very long, right? The simple answer is it's scary because it's faceless. It's not a person, and yet I'm competitive against it. And that competitive spirit, even people that like that and like that feeling, that is an anxious feeling. That is I might not win. I might not work. It might not work. You got to make it less scary. You got to make it less. And the best way to do that is to use examples quickly of what am I talking about when I say it. I'm saying something that is now going to be built into Excel or Google Sheets that can do a balancing for you and write the macro for you, because you can do the prompt instead of you having to take a class on how to learn to write the macro. You can just write in a prompt that says, I want it to do this, this, and this, and it will build the macro. I don't know about you. I've taken a lot of Excel classes and I'm still pretty good, but I forget how to do the darn macros and I have to call my finance person every time. I would love a prompt where I could just say, I just want you to do this, and it's going to do it. Like, that's what we're talking about. And once you have a few more things where you're like, oh, that's AI? Oh, that's AI? Oh, it's someone who can respond in real time to a customer when in a customer service role. And I know on the other side, if you're on the thing, but with empathy, where they think they're speaking to a person because 75% of the calls is somebody who doesn't know how to reset their password and can get the same answers and can only pull in a person when they really need to go deeper, and has like a 90% rate of faking people out that's right. That's what it is. Right now. So, but then we'll take the flip side of that. Well, my job is customer service. My job is answering those calls. Your job could still be moving to a larger level of managing all of the calls, all those chatbots as they're being answered, deciding when you need to pull in, taking trends from those users and understanding how it's going to affect the whole business. You're still a service expert, and now you've fundamentally changed our strategy of where the organization is going, because you're able to focus less on day-to-day answers and more looking at the trends and making sure everything's working and filing that back up. So for back to your question, if one of those people said, are you telling me this will replace my job, Tara? No, but I'm telling you it'll change it. And I think you'll be pretty excited about it if you open your eyes and look.
Well, for all those listening, if you got a question for Tara, drop it in the comments below. Maybe even this one give me the nudge to bring Tara back, because I know I feel better after this discussion. I'd like more of these. So just want to give you a huge thank you, Tara, for taking the time, for contributing your thoughts, and really for kind of pioneering the way we think about embracing AI and embracing this kind of transformative change.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It was nice meeting you, Adam. Bye,
Awesome.
everybody.
Over and out.